special guest with us, Mr. I.V. Subramanian, who is the CIO at Quantum Advisors and Director of Quantum Mutual Fund. He manages a lot of public money in the Indian markets and in the foreign portfolios. We welcome you, sir. Welcome to this special series of webinar.
Thank you, Neeraj.
Yes. Mr. Subramanian, there is a important question on the top of the investors. The sharp divergence of the macro data and the share price movement that we have seen, and equity markets have recovered sharply after a correction in March and April. Similarly, gold and silver prices have also moved up quite dramatically. On the other hand, the global GDP data points are painting a very grim picture. Almost all companies have posted a drop in revenue numbers for the Q1, which ended in June. What do you make of this entire reading of the divergence of the macro data and the share price movement?
So maybe we can look at it this way. I don't necessarily think that it is a sheer divergence between macro data and share price movement. Markets are, as you know, intelligent and reflects whatever is the ground reality. Now, there could be a variety of factors which could influence it, but it is what it is. So, for instance, while the macro data looks weak in the coming years, maybe the market is also reflecting the fact that there is too much of liquidity available throughout the world and interest rates are low. And as you know, when interest rates are low, the financial assets tend to be buoyant. And that is reflected in either share prices or it is reflected in bond prices. And that is what it is currently. So right after GFC, the global financial crisis, in general, the liquidity across the globe was very high. And post the COVID, we have only seen it increase. So it is reflecting the fact that there is a lot of money available, interest rates are low, so therefore financial assets will be priced accordingly. Now, when you look at the macro data, the way I would interpret it is not exactly as a divergence, but where exactly the pain points could come. So as I said, when interest rates are low, you will see the all asset prices moving up. But then the market is also signaling probably some sectors would benefit more than the others. For instance, if you look at the tech companies, if you look at the pharma companies, even if you look at some of the large companies, not only in India, but internationally, they have probably gained much more than other companies. So A, it's a reflection of easy liquidity available. B, it is also reflecting a thought that maybe the smaller companies may have problem in surviving, while the larger companies may survive. So you have seen some amount of flows going into very large companies, even whether you take in the US or whether you take in India. Certain companies have disproportionately benefited compared to the larger number of companies. So yes, you have an economy which seems to be tanking, and it will take time to recover. But asset prices are probably looking beyond that. It is looking probably 2 years down the line, and it expects a recovery. And the easy money is making it is making the stock prices look far more beyond than what the macro data suggests. But as I said, that is what the reality is. Now, each one of us will have to approach the market in a different way, and that will be based on our experiences of the past, our historical knowledge as to how long the interest rates could be low, and whether we believe that it will continue to remain low or it may go up. So if you believe that interest rates will come back to normalcy, it will go back, then you will be a lot more cautious because you are not really believing the prices which today the market is discounting. But if you believe that these interest rates will remain low for a long time, then maybe you will discount the cash flows at these low interest rates, which means you will continue to justify the high stock prices. So these are various ways to look at it. How we approach will all depends on the fund manager, whether he looks at growth, whether he looks at value, what kind of historical knowledge he has, and that is how he will take. But markets are markets, we cannot say there is a divergence. I can only say that it is reflecting one fact, which is the easy availability of liquidity and the recovery in the economy going forward.
Interesting point that you made. Over the past a decade or so, India has seen a lot of reforms by way of implementation of GST, RERA, corporate tax cuts, and India, of course, has seen a lot of disruptions with NBFC crisis, COVID-related lockdowns. Now, during such times, we have seen that large organized players eat up market share and basically consolidate at the expense of smaller unorganized players. Do you see this trend as a structural theme, or do you see this as a more transient in nature as we move from a $3 trillion economy to maybe $5 trillion economy?
So if you look at the developed markets and how they have developed over the period of years, then definitely consolidation is a theme that will probably play out. But as a country, if we desire to go the way the developed markets have gone, then that is a possibility that consolidation will happen. However, the nature of the Indian market, the density of the population, the widespread population across the country, the variety in our culture probably demands that there be a more number of smaller companies than a few larger ones, particularly in certain areas like, for instance, in staples, in food. You may want smaller localized companies as opposed to a very large consolidated company. Particularly if you look at it from a post-COVID world, consolidation may happen due to financial reasons in certain areas. But if the consumer preference is to buy certain products locally, such as food, then we may see a consolidation in certain industries and not necessarily in others. In some industries, it will continue to be not global in nature, but more local in nature. And the more and more I see the buying pattern in the past few months across my friends, my neighbors, including myself, in certain cases, we want things to be fresh. So no more believing in, say, the packaged food which used to lie in the refrigerator of malls for a long time, but we are looking for freshness, which means probably there is a local producer who is doing it. So therefore, in such cases, it may remain unconsolidated, and that is probably good for a country like ours, where more number of entrepreneurs come to play in the market rather than have a few companies. However, you look at certain industries where probably capex intensity is high, and there are advantages of having a large company, for instance, in the case of telecom, then it might be better to have a consolidated few players rather than many. Uh, so I foresee in India it will be a mix of both. Unless as a country, as policies, we only encourage large companies, in which case consolidation will be rampant across board. Otherwise, I see India will continue to have this good mix where certain industries will be consolidated and certain industries will remain, diverse, small in nature, and meeting the cultural needs of different kind of population in different parts of the country.
A fair point that you made. And talking about consumptions, you touched upon the point of staples, and it forms a part of very important, GDP and macro data. The narrative of India is that it's a strong domestic consumption story, and it will drive the bulk of the GDP growth. Now, while we have seen a supply side disruption due to lockdowns, and while that has also eased out a bit, do you see revived demand in the discretionary consumable space, like, for example, autos?
Yeah, I do see a revival, but it may be a slower process because consumption patterns may change. And although the discretionary income could be up for some people, as people have postponed certain spending, let us say, such as travel or such as going out to restaurants, but they may also be forced to invest in other products such as a laptop or mobiles, as many sectors have moved online. So while the discretionary incomes have gone up, it will probably go to the benefit of a few products. So these are certain changes which will happen which is happening and will probably accelerate going forward. The initial Demand which picked up, I would say it was a result of inventory adjustment, pent-up demand, seasonal factors like buying things before the monsoon. Those influenced it. But going forward, while I do see a revival, I see it happening at a slower uh, pace. Also, consumer psyche may have changed, right? Today, most consumers, after having seen some amount of shock, either directly or indirectly, they may be more inclined to save than spend. In which case, again, the revival will be a slower process. Leaving aside the fact things like job losses in some industries, lower incomes will have an impact on consumption. But in general, I do expect India to recover, but it will be a slower process.
Okay, interesting point that you made. Mr. Subramanian, financials as a sector is a backbone of any economy, and India's financial sector has seen its own fair share of disruptions in the last probably a decade or so. With the moratorium being now lifted by RBI and the actual pain on the asset side is probably yet to be seen, do you think how financials as a sector will emerge on the other side of the tunnel? And part two of the question is, how should one look at financials allocating money at this point in time?
Yeah, so from from the initial lockdown, initial ability of people to pay, moratorium rules, the recovery, all of that will play a very important role as people's ability or companies' ability to repay the loans they have taken or to monitor and adjust the cash flow impact which they may face. From the comments of some of the large companies, it appears that the NPA may be under control. It will no doubt be high, but within a range where it can still be monitored and controlled with. The good thing which has happened also in many of the banks and NBFCs over the last few months is that they have raised capital. So many of them have beefed up their capital quite well, and which should help them going forward even if the NPA increases. The other way to look at it is companies which have not beefed up their capital, you may find the stress level to be such that either it will stall their growth going forward because they don't have adequate capital, or it could lead to a serious problem if really the capital adequacy was quite low and the NPAs shoot up. So generic view seems to be larger, efficient banks and NBFCs seem to be controlling their assets well. From their comments, it appears that clients are coming back to start repaying the loans. And these two should help these companies sustain the current problem period, and then maybe going ahead, they will tend to benefit as some of the smaller companies may not have the ability to live out the current crisis. So you may find the business going towards the larger efficient banks as well as NBFCs. So from an investment point of view, while there is appears to be value when you look at the historical price to book and you look at the current price to book, there appears to be value. But the trigger for that will be a little, it will come only as the economy picks up. As I said in the earlier question, we do see an economic revival, which means the growth will come back, which means credit growth will come back. And those which are well capitalized will be able to manage the past NPAs and have enough capital to grow going forward. So I would look for companies which are meeting both these requirements, where they seem to be fairly under control in terms of NPA and have enough capital to manage that and to build the business going forward.
Interesting point there. Mr. Subramanian, a recent update on SEBI, which has come, and it has probably taken, everyone probably and the mutual fund industry as a surprise, with a new mandate of the multi-cap funds. Essentially, it says, you need to invest 25% each across the market capitalizations, large, mid, and small. The question really is, how do you think this new mandate will play out? And will it affect the stock price movement of small and mid caps, given that some of the large multi-cap funds are overweight large caps?
Yeah, so now of course the SEBI has given time. So depending on how the mutual funds react to it, that will decide whether it will influence the prices. It is quite possible that some of the mutual funds may recategorize their fund, in which case they may not have to do this readjustment. It is also possible, as I read some comment, that they may, instead of naming it as a multi-cap fund, they may name it as a flexi-cap fund, which allows them the flexibility to be across the cap spectrum. Uh, so after doing all this, it depends on the final amount of AUM available, and then it will decide whether the stock prices will get influenced or not. But one of the challenges will be that, if you have such an automatic rule, how do you deploy it in a small cap and a large mid cap names? Some of them can be very illiquid. So while in the process of ensuring that people go ahead and invest as per their mandate, which they have stated in the prospectus, if you end up buying a small cap because you have the AUM and you set 25% has to go into small cap, you may be buying into illiquid stocks, which at the time of redemption, which at the time of selling, can cause a serious stress to the portfolio. Because the fund manager may not be able to first deploy large sums without impacting the price significantly, which means then what does he do when the prices get significantly influenced? And second is, once invested, and if there is a redemption, how do you get out of that? So there will be a lot of price disruption if it is followed blindly. Now that they have given time, I think the industry will have a chance to relook at it, and then it will go ahead and probably make a representation as to how in true spirit this could be. So we will have to wait.
Okay, and a quick follow-up question. You have been a value investor, and currently we have seen, markets have been polarized in sort of nature. So top 10 stocks contributing the bulk of the returns of a headline index like a Sensex or a Nifty, and the broader market seems to be, relatively cheaper on the valuation front. As an investor, how do you see the mid-cap and small-cap space evolving, given the low base and the low valuation probably it enjoys in the current times?
So one of the problem of having a large amount of liquidity flow in the market is that it tends to sometimes what you call park itself as opposed to invest. And when you say park itself is some of the let's say a global fund manager, when he has to have some allocation to India, he will just park that money in some large companies as opposed to really looking deeper and looking at opportunities. So right now, that could be the trend where the large companies are benefiting because of the flows, while the mid cap and small cap are probably not getting the same amount of benefit. But having said that, as a value investor, we would always look at the fundamentals. We would look to see what is happening in that company, how quickly can they recover, what are the challenges which they would face, whether they have the right strategy, whether they have the right amount of capital, and then we will decide whether to go ahead and invest or not. So while from a price perspective, valuation perspective, it may look interesting, one has to be careful and see that the company actually survives this current slowdown and comes out strong. So in the case of a mid cap and a small cap, those kind of fundamental research have to be a little more intensive than what you would do, say, in a large cap. In a large company, while you are looking at the fundamentals, at least if it is well capitalized, you sort of know that this company may survive over a longer period. But that is not the case in a mid-sized company, where the challenges could come from technology changes, human resources, capital. Many things can affect the business, and it can have a disproportionate impact on that company. So one has to be a little more careful when it comes to these companies.
Talking about top 3 sectors, which you think will be the largest beneficiaries of the current times, and which could possibly take advantage of the current scenario.
So things are evolving right now. It looks like IT seems to definitely be a beneficiary of that. Medical and medical related, whether it's hospitals, whether it is medicines, or probably the future spend on healthcare in each country increasing after seeing the COVID scare. Probably they could also get benefit. So IT healthcare definitely looks as possible candidates. Again, company specific details one has to look, but as a sector they do look interesting. And on the consumption side, again, I think companies which are addressing the environment, companies which are coming up with products which are more suitable in a post-COVID world, as we spoke about some of the consumer staples trend or food trend, they will benefit. Uh, so from a sector-wise, certain parts of consumption looks good. Certain parts of, say, education, learning, new skills have to be learned in this new world. If there are skilling companies, maybe that can be attractive, along with the fact that the IT and pharma, which you do.
Okay,
So
interesting
I'm
point.
talking about purely the benefit coming from the current times. But as I
Right.
said, like companies
Sure.
adjust. So while the direct benefit may not come to say a banking sector, but as the banks adjust to the new reality, they will also continue to do that. But a disproportionate benefit may come to some of the sectors we speak.
Right. Interesting point. So over the last few years, there has been an increased interest amongst retail Indian investors to look at international equities through the mutual fund route. And some of the funds have launched index funds and also feeder funds that feed into the US or the other markets funds. In your opinion, is there a strong proposition for an Indian retail investor to look at international investing? And if there is any case, what are those tenets that one should look for before going international? And how can investors basically benefit out of international investing?
So it depends on your financial goals and what are your needs. International investing, let's say in developed markets, it may come as a diversification need. And within the diversification, suppose you have a plan to spend a certain amount of money in the foreign currency over the next few years, whether it be your child's education or you want to fund something abroad, then you may want to start building an international equities portfolio, particularly in the developed world context. Because if you're looking only for growth, then generally emerging markets and countries like India will continue to probably grow at a higher rate. So unless there is a need for having dollar assets or assets in some other currency, then there is a strong case for international equity. Uh, so the other way to get dollar exposure could also be through gold. But suppose you really understand, let's say, technology, and you understand that the US markets offers a lot of technology stocks, and you do have a need for dollar assets later on, in which case it may make sense for you to invest in the international equities and within that a particular sector. So we can now generalize it. We need to leave it to the individual investor. What will drive, as I said, what will drive people to invest will be the need for diversification, will be the need to own a foreign asset because they foresee a foreign liability or international currency liability going forward, in which case they will go ahead and do. And then depending on your risk appetite, you can decide whether you want to be in an index fund or an active fund, or you actually want to actively buy stocks. That again is a individual investor driven decision.
Interesting point that you made. So Amphi has just released its August flow numbers, and which has painted a picture that there is a net redemption, and this is probably the lowest since March 2016. Probably the entire mutual fund industry was witnessing a robust flows in terms of the SIP numbers and also the lumpy equity flows. Do you see a trend which is unfolding here with investors taking money off the table, or do you see this as probably just a profit booking activity which the investors have resorted to?
Uh, Given the sharp correction in the stock prices in the past few months, where after declining till March, it turned and rapidly moved up. Uh, I would say it is a mix of all the things which you said. The people who were trading on a short-term basis, because the markets have moved up so significantly, there might be some amount of profit booking. It is also possible that some people are impacted from an income point of view, because either their business was running below normal, or their job which they were doing, the salaries have been curtailed. There could be a number of reasons where you may find some investors actually dipping into their savings. And if one of the savings has been in equities, and because equities have run up, they may want to use some of the cash flows from equities by selling it and using it for their personal life. So we cannot. So it's not a trend. It is definitely a possibility. It is a possibility that people are booking profits, and some people are using it to probably support themselves because their other incomes have got impacted because of COVID.
Okay, okay, interesting point. Sir, one last question on the overall economic recovery. A lot of market participants have voiced their opinion with an alphabet letter. Would you, call it a V-shaped or an L-shaped or a U-shaped or any alphabet letter recovery? Or how do you see the economic recovery, going forward from here on?
Very difficult to say which will be which alphabet, because as I said, I do expect a slow recovery. So maybe if you have the A written in small cap and you have the tail slowly moving up, maybe it will be of that shape and not such a sharp drop and then moving up. So I do see a gliding path moving upwards. Maybe it can be symbolized with that small A rather than any of this. The main point is not the alphabet. The main point is we do expect a recovery, and the recovery is going to be a little slow. So the risk to the recovery is again how much of the spread of COVID will remain over the next few months, and will there be any further worry about the lockdowns? As you know, Israel has already announced a second lockdown for a couple of weeks, and there seems to be indication that other European countries may follow too. Now that's on the international side, which will impact certain businesses. But on India also, we have had specific city-specific lockdowns happening. Now, if that trends continue, then again there will be disruption in production, in labor, labor movements, supply chains, raw material procurement, and that will have an impact. So if there are no lockdowns, it will gradually improve, and it will be a slower process as we head into the festive season and then beyond. Yeah.
Okay, fair point. So there you have it, Mr. Subramanian, Subbu, as he is widely known. His thoughts about markets, his thoughts about economy. Probably this is not the time to jump into mid caps and small caps just from a valuation down perspective. You need to have a careful fundamental analysis done. Simply because SEBI has come up with a mandate of giving multi-cap funds, investing into 3 baskets. You might not want to jump that bandwagon and call it jump the gun and invest heavily into the mid caps and small caps. On the other side, economic recovery, you need to be cautious about the developments which happen in the broader markets, and keep your eyes and ears open and do your fundamental research to enhance your portfolio returns. With that, take a moment to thank you, sir, for your insightful thoughts.
Thank you.
I look forward to speaking to you again. Viewers, please have this disclaimer: investments and mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Please read all scheme-related documents carefully. Please do consult your financial advisor before making any investment decisions. Do take very good care of yourself. Thank you. Until next time, it's goodbye from us.
Thank you, Neerav. Thank you, Jignesh.